Hello, it's Grandma Karen. Today I will show you how to change the needle and how to clean the lint from under the feed dog and put oil in your machine. Lint and threads under the feed dog can cause bad stitches. In this video we will be looking at the Bernina 335. As we learn to change the needle, you will see some machines that are not a Bernina 335, but the information is generic and will apply to your machine. We are working near the needle today. Let's be safe. Turn the machine off or unplug it. To dispose of needles, we do not just throw them in the trash where they can poke someone through the plastic bag. We can wrap them in a paper towel before throwing them away. I've made a little container to dispose of mine. I put duct tape around the lid of this can, and then I make a slit in the top so that I can dispose of my needles this way. And then I store this away from little children so that they can't get into it. Your sewing machine needle is part of what makes great stitches. I change the needle often on my machine. How can you tell if you need to change your needle? The following photos will tell you. The yellow arrow is pointing to a needle with a burr or hook on the pointed end of the needle. This can cause bad stitches, broken threads, and damaged fabric. You will need to change the needle if your needle is like this. Sometimes needles break and have to be replaced. If your needle breaks, try to find all the pieces and properly dispose of them. We will discuss how to prevent breaking needles in our next lesson when we sew on fabric. I often start sewing by feeling the back of the needle. If it has a burr or a hook on it, or if it feels rough like sandpaper, I know it's time to change the needle. If my top thread keeps breaking, or if the tension on my stitches look horrible, or the machine is skipping stitches like the top right photo, I first rethread the machine. If I still have this problem, I put in a new needle. Sometimes a bent, a burred, or a damaged needle can cause these problems. If I hear a crunching or a punching sound as the needle goes into the fabric for each stitch, then I know the point of the needle has become dull and I need to change the needle. Eventually you will be able to hear it when the needle is dull. You need to change the needle about every 6 to 8 hours of sewing. Check the needle often. A new needle makes better stitches. Let's look closely at this huge model of a sewing machine needle. At the top of this needle, where the needle goes into the sewing machine, it's rounded. This is the front of the needle. The front of the needle has a groove that runs down to the hole or the eye of the needle. This is where the thread lies. I turn the needle over, and this is the back of the needle. The back of the needle has a flat side at the top instead of a round side. This photo shows the flat side of the needle and the round side of the needle at the top of the shaft. Here's an important stitch note to help reinforce this. A needle that is bent, dull, rough, or has a burr on the end can cause bad stitches. Change the needle every 6 to 8 hours or when you see or feel or hear problems. To take the needle out of the machine, you will have to turn the needle screw. Your machine's needle screw may look similar to one of these. For most machines, you can just use your fingers to loosen the screw. Some machines have a special screwdriver like these photos to loosen the needle screw and remove the needle. To take out the old needle in this machine, I put the presser foot down. I put the needle in its top position, and then I'm going to hold the needle with my left hand, and I'm going to undo the screw by turning it towards me, turning the top of it towards me, and till the needle comes out. I don't want to unscrew this so much that the screw falls out, and I want to make sure I hold on to the needle so that it doesn't fall into the machine. I'm going to place the old needle on a plate or a bowl, and I'm going to take a new needle out of this package here. For this brand, I need to pull this clear plastic part in the front down, and then this part folds back a little. You don't want to fold it back too much or it'll break. And then I can take out a new needle, and then I'm going to put those back into my plate. And then to put this in, I want the flat side of my needle facing the back of my machine. I'm going to put it in that little hole with my left hand, and I'm going to turn the screw until it's tight. And I'm going to make sure that it's pushed up all the way into the machine. If the needle is not into the hole all the way, your machine will not work. On some older machines, instead of threading the needle from the front to the back, you will be threading it from the right to the left, and the flat side of the needle will be facing the left side of the machine. I will make another longer video on needles with a lot more information in a later lesson. Your mentor will choose the correct needle to sew your first quilt. There are still a couple more things you need to know about needles that affect your stitches. The yellow arrow on the left side of the photo is pointing to the needle type, which is called universal. And the bottom right arrow is pointing to the needle size, which is 80-12. These two needles help you understand size. You can see the groove down the front of these two needles. The needle on the left is a size 110. See how thick the shaft is? The eye and groove are also large. The needle on the right is a size 60 needle. The shaft and eye are much smaller. The groove is tiny. Look at the thickness and size of the thread in each needle. This thick thread would have a hard time going into the little size 60 needle. The thickness of the shaft is called the size. The groove on the needle where the thread lies and the eye of the needle get bigger as the size of the needle goes up. Thicker threads need larger size needles. Needle style or needle type is how the point of the needle is shaped. The eye of the needle and the cutout behind the eye are also shaped differently for different types of needles. The style or type may be called stretch needle for sewing stretchy fabrics, or leather needle for sewing leather, or embroidery needle for going really fast in embroidery work. They are shaped to best work with different fabrics, different threads, and with different kinds of sewing. I will use a universal type needle size 80-12. It works well with the thread I'm going to use. The important concept here is when a thread is too big or too small for a needle, it can cause bad stitches and can cause thread to shred. The wrong type of needle for your fabric can also cause bad stitches and bad tension. I've showed you how to thread the needle in lesson 8. Your Bernina 335 has a manual or automatic needle threader. This needle threader does not work on the smaller size 60 or size 70 needles. The needle threader should be used gently. It can break easily. The machine is turned off. I have threaded the machine except for the eye. Using the hand wheel, I put the needle at its highest position and I'm going to lower the presser foot. I've taken the presser foot off to make this easier to see. So I'm going to start by pushing this gray lever right here. I'm going to push it down and then I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to put it underneath this little hook. I just use my finger from my left hand, but you might need to do it with your right hand, whatever way works for you. And then I'm going to lay it across the needle and the little hooks that are over on this side. Here's a close-up to show you how to push down the lever and put the thread under the left hook. After going under the left hook, the thread goes across the eye of the needle and under the hook on the right side of the needle. There's a tiny wire hook that you can't see that pokes out from the eye of the needle. Your thread will go under this hook. Sometimes I need to push this forward just a little bit and do it gently, and then I'm going to let go of my hook and my thread. And there will be a loop that forms behind the eye of my needle. Sometimes it gets caught like it did there. And then you're just going to pull on that loop until it comes out the back of the needle. This is a close-up of the loop that forms behind the needle's eye. Every sewing machine gets lint inside from thread and from the fabric. It needs to be cleaned regularly. Many experts advise cleaning the machine every time the bobbin runs out. If you find your stitches are not good, cleaning your machine usually makes them better. Clean the dust off the outside of the machine with a soft cloth. The machine is unplugged. I've removed the slide-on table. I've removed the needle and the presser foot. I've also removed the top thread. A little lint brush came with your machine. You will need it or some other soft lint brush to clean the machine. You're going to lower the needle a little bit. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean around here. Lint gets on this needle bar. Take the lint off the brush. Then I'm going to put my needle back up in the highest position. Let's remove this stitch plate. At the back of the stitch plate, on the right back corner, is a bullseye mark. And you're going to press this bullseye. You might have to press it with both hands. It presses pretty hard. And then you're going to lift it up and take it off. Then you can see all the lint that's in here. All around my feed dog, there's lots of lint. Some fabrics and threads give off a lot of lint, and this is going to need to be cleaned. I'm going to clean off the back of my stitch plate with my brush. And then I'm going to put it in a plate or a bowl. You can see the bullseye better in this photo. This is where you push to remove the stitch plate. The bobbin area also needs to be exposed for cleaning. Open the door and take out the bobbin case, put it in my plate. I'm going to make sure that this is at the top because that makes it easier for us to remove all these parts here. And this is the race cover, and it swings open when I push this release button right here. So I'm just going to push that, and this opens up. You can see there's lots of lint in there also. Here's a close-up of the release button that you will need to push to open the race cover. Now you can see the hook. I'm going to pull it out by grabbing onto this post right here. And now you can see there's the hook. And I will place that in my plate. Here's a photo of the hook taken out of the machine. Now that I have all the parts taken out, I'm going to start cleaning in the feed dog area at the top. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to start brushing. And I always brush towards me, not towards the back of the machine. I don't want to push lint down into the holes here. So I'm just going to go like this. Make sure I get it all off, all the parts here. I'm not going to use anything sharp to pull out the lint or the threads. Scratching parts of the machine with a metal tool or pin can cause your threads to break later on. Now it's time to clean this hook area. So again, I'm going to clean all the parts I can see, and I'm going to try not to push things in the back. I'm just going to go all in these corners and around the hook, shuttle, and race areas. And as I go, I have to take the lint off of my brush. Now I'm going to clean the race area here. And there's two little parts here, a metal part and a plastic part, and I kind of clean in between them, clean all the way around. I'm going to try to get all the lint out of there, and then I'm going to also even clean the lint off of my door here, my little bobbin cover. I pick up the shuttle hook and brush the inside, all the little holes, the outside, the back. And then I'm going to run my finger across these hooks here. There's a hook there and there. There's one down here. Just make sure there's no rough edges. If there's any rough edges, then you're going to take it to your Bernina dealer to buff them smooth again. A rough spot on your hook can cause your top thread to break. Do not use canned air on your machine. You can, however, use a special vacuum or mini vacuum attachment. Many of the mini vacuums are made to clean electronics and keyboards. It is important to take your sewing machine in for tune-ups, just like a car. I take my machine in once a year. The technician can make fine-tuning adjustments that I cannot. Your machine also needs oil. Do not put oil in your machine if it is dirty. Clean the lint first. I'm going to put 2 or 3 drops of oil right here at the bottom of this flat area. So like this, just 2 or 3 drops. You don't need any more than that. My machine makes a horrible clanking noise if I neglect to oil it. Use only sewing machine oil in your machine. Do not use any other kind of oil. If your machine is old and the oil is very yellow, then it might be time to buy a new container of sewing machine oil. It is recommended that you oil your machine after every other time your bobbin runs out. Now it's time to put all the pieces back together. I'm going to place a large spool of thread under my machine right here just to tip it a little bit because the hook will stay in easier if it's tipped. First I'm going to do is turn the hand wheel to make sure that this half moon right here is in the up and down position. So this is the top and the bottom. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this shuttle hook make the other half of the moon, and I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to make sure that it's in there flat. So that these edges are flush all the way along here. So after I've made sure that it's flat, I'm going to take my hinged race cover and I'm going to push. And I'm going to push right here where near the latch. And I'm going to push it hard and make sure that it's in all the way. If it doesn't go in, then it could be that your hook is not in there flat. There it goes. And I'm going to push until sometimes it makes a clicking sound. So now I'm going to put my stitch plate back on, make sure that the bullseye is in the back right corner, and I'm just going to put the left side in, and then I'm going to push down on the right side, and there it goes. It's in place now. The left side of what I call the moon stays in the machine. The right side of the moon is the hook part that you have taken out of your machine to clean it. When all the pieces are back in place, I rock the hand wheel back and forth to make sure it is working well. Then I run the machine without thread for a few seconds to get the oil moving around. I thread the machine and sew a few stitches on a scrap of fabric to make sure that no oil will get on my project. And our last stitch note says, lint and dust inside your feed dog and bobbin area can cause bad stitches and thread jams. Clean out lint after every bobbin change. Oil the machine after every other bobbin change, and when you hear or feel that it needs it. We've had another lesson with a lot of information. You will eventually be able to hear and feel when your machine needs to be cleaned and oiled. For your homework, show your mentor that you can do the following things. 1. Remove the needle from the sewing machine. Replace the needle with the same needle or with a new one. Properly dispose of the old needle. 2. Remove the stitch plate and the bobbin case. Swing open the race cover. Take out the hook. Clean all lint and thread from these areas and off of all of the pieces. Oil the machine. 3. Put all the pieces back together correctly. 4. Point out the needle size and the needle type on a package of needles. In our next lesson, we will sew on another practice worksheet and sew on some fabric squares. We will learn what a seam is and how to use the sewing guidelines on your stitch plate. See you next time. And here's a note to the mentor. In our next lesson, we will use the sewing machine with thread. Print out the worksheet posted underneath the video link for Lesson 10, or look at the handout and draw a similar paper. You will need the following: 6 squares or rectangles of fabric at least 3 inches by 3 inches, 2 long pieces of fabric at least 12 inches long and at least 2 inches wide. You'll need pins and small scissors. Thank you for helping someone learn to sew.